Hey everybody, it's Dan. I'm here for some more paintovers. Today I'm going to be looking at this piece right here, which was submitted on the forums by, hold on just a second, I want to close the artcamp page. I want to make sure I get the information here before I start. Still got a cough, but I'm feeling significantly better. Don't know why it's taken so long, but that's what's happening. This was submitted by V for Vendetta, student, Ireland. Okay. So hello, I've just finished putting this merfolk guy in his underwater setting. I tried to play on the lighting a bit, but it still needs some work on the chest plates and head. I think I've been overworking those pieces and pretty much at a loss on how to finish up. Help on this and any other elements is greatly appreciated. Okay, so we're going to be looking at this one for a bit. And the first thing I'm going to say, just looking at some references and some underwater stuff, looking at this piece, everything's kind of the same color, and I think that's causing you a bit of a problem. Ocean water is green in some parts. It has, it's more green in certain areas than others, depending on how shallow you are and the lighting that's going on above the water. But this feels incredibly, incredibly green. There's just a lot of yellow going on. So the first thing I'm going to do is change that, and then we're going to get into the composition of this dude and how to make him a little more exciting. So just give me a second here. It seems like this dude's supposed to be fairly deep, probably at least, I don't know, based on how he's painted, based on the kelp he's holding on to and everything. I'm going to say at least 30 feet down or something, so there's going to be, some green, but there's going to be a lot of blue. Now my suggestion for the underwater guy, because everything was the same color and it was kind of monochromatic, is to keep the green in him and the kelp and to push the blues everywhere else to really make him stand out a bit more. So as I paint this, anyone in the chat who's here, feel free to post any questions or stuff you'd like to talk about or anything else. And I've got the chat open right here next to my painting window, so I'll be more than happy to talk about anything and everything, so feel free to post in there. But yeah. So this is going to be one of those paintovers where I look at the elements that you have in the painting, and I'm going to pull from those to really focus on what I'm going to be adding to it or changing. So I'm going to use the elements you've put here, your ideas. So right off the bat, I haven't really done anything yet, but just adding some blue into the shadows and adding some blue into the water and all that stuff. Right off the bat, it's already more iconic in terms of the character popping off the canvas. There's some other stuff to talk about, though. Am I looking forward to any announcements from Comic-Con? Not really. No, not really. There's a couple movies I wouldn't mind seeing some stuff from. Like, I'd like to see like what Marvel's up to with their next phase of movies, like Doctor Strange and stuff like that, just because I've been enjoying all the stuff they've been doing lately, but I'm not like crazy excited to see anything in particular. I just want to see Guardians of the Galaxy, which is coming out in like a week, so, but yeah. So the next thing I'm going to try and address in this piece is, let's see, this this tail feels weird because the way it's curling is almost a right angle. If you see what I'm doing, it's almost like an L, and it just feels a little unnatural, especially in like a no real gravity environment. Like, it looks like this could be standing on the ground basically, but he's in this no real gravity environment of being underwater, so it feels less flowy than it should. So I'm gonna bring that down. I think. I'm not sure exactly how far down. I'm gonna start playing with it though. Let's see what feels right. Because just compositionally, having that angle right there feels very strange. Feels a little too harsh for the kind of creature this guy is in the environment that he's been drawn in. So I'll bring this plant down, pull some water over here. The only real stuff at Comic-Con I ever get excited for, to go back to that question, I can't really get excited for it. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. Like, if they announce new stuff that's really cool that I wasn't like expecting, I always enjoy that. But the catch with that is that it hasn't been announced yet, so I can't really expect it. You know what I mean? So I'm excited to hear about new things, but I don't know what those things are because they haven't been announced. It looks like his tail is here, and then there's a school of fish that isn't part of his tail back here. That's what I'm gonna assume that is. But yeah. So again, it's making a little too much of a right angle, so I'm gonna bring the tail way down. Is Venture Brothers even a thing anymore? Like, is there new Venture Brothers stuff coming out? They've been gone for like a while. When is it coming? Do you know when season 6 of Venture Brothers is coming? Because it's like my favorite show. They haven't had anything in so long, I just don't know. It's been forever. Okay, so there's a couple other weird things in this piece. I'm just going to kind of go bit by bit until I guess I address everything. There's a couple things that are jumping out to me that got to be fixed. So having one strand of kelp here feels kind of weird. I'm gonna probably paint in some more, just because it feels very just kind of isolated and alone there. But yeah, kelp. I mean, they call them kelp forests for a reason. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot. So I guess I should probably actually... I'm going to draw this first one, and then I'm going to switch my layer mode over. I don't mind that this gets murky down at the bottom. I kind of like it, actually, so I'm going to try to play to that. But that means I got to pop certain other parts out. So I'm going to actually try this on a multiply layer for now. Just kind of rough some in. While I drink my coffee. Further away ones, of course, are going to be bluer with softer edges. Closer ones are going to be greener with harder edges. See, anybody have any stuff they'd like to talk about in the chat? News, questions, stuff you've been working on, things you're excited for, just anything. Just so I don't go silent and put on music, because I probably will. Is this cool? Hold on, I gotta open it. What is that? I don't know what it's supposed to be. It looks like it's a female Zelda thing. Like, you know, I'll post this in the chat. Looks a bit too like that. Copy and paste it. I spent the last few days working on a piece and really want to do another color, or really want to add another color so it doesn't look so flat. Any tips on how to add color into a piece that's already been worked? I would have to see the piece. I mean, that's a very generic question. How to add color to a piece depends on how you painted it, the lighting, the colors that are already there. I mean, if you see something you want to do, I mean, the most obvious advice is to just try it on a layer. And if it doesn't work, you know, you can delete the layer. But yeah, that's a little too vague of a question. You're doing fan art this week in support of a guy who's getting support for carpal tunnel. That's cool. It's good. Right now I'm just trying to build the values in the background. I'll get back into the character and that stuff once I'm done doing that. I'm just zooming way out. I know that if you're watching on YouTube or on demand right now, you can't see what I'm doing at all, but I'm zoomed out to just look at the lighting as a thumbnail basically and get an idea for the whole canvas while I push some values back and pull some other ones forward. You can link it, that's fine. I probably can't paint over it because I'm already doing this one, but you can totally link it. I may also, let's see here. I'm going to change the spear. The reason I'm changing the spear compositionally is just because it's not really serving any purpose there. It's just sort of bisecting the canvas at a weird angle. I go for something that serves the piece a bit more. Yeah, I think I'll do that. Just to activate this part of the canvas and to make the composition a very clear shape, which is a V. I'm gonna get rid of this school of fish too. For now, we'll bring back some fish, but where they were right there was just kind of random. Hmm. Hold on, I'm opening the link right now. Had to copy and paste it. Alright, so you want to know, what was the question? How to add color to this? Compositionally, it's a bit, the ship is a bit weird. It's making a weird, like, parallel tangent with the top of the canvas, but, adding color to it, I mean, it's pretty monochromatic. I mean, you could use a soft light layer to wash in some subtle colors. You could do an overlay layer, I mean a color layer, obviously. Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty. I'll pull it over onto the monitor. It's pretty black and white. So any adjustment layer like color or something like that, you could probably get some color in here pretty easily. I don't know what colors you'd want to use, but I'd say before you go to color, fix some stuff compositionally with this boat. It's hugging the top of the canvas like crazy. You know, you could put it at a better angle so it's not so sideways and flat and have it really like, you know, tapering off into the distance or something. It's just kind of like this big, weird shape, and there's nothing in here. It's all dark. It'd be one thing if there were like trees growing up the side of it or vines or something, but it's just this big, massive shape. Um, Adversely, you could raise the thing the guy's on up like a rock, like here, and have him in the middle, so he's kind of breaking up all that black on like the halfway line. Bring him up into the piece more, because right now this character is very much an afterthought. He's pushed way down to the bottom. It's really all about this big ship. But the problem is, because it's all about the big ship, there's nothing there. It's just a big, empty rectangle. So it's like, it's really, really boring compositionally. But yeah, all kinds of ways you could add color to this. But I would say figure out the composition of the drawing before you do. Not necessarily try to give the ship character, just compositionally. It's not about redesigning the ship and making it look cooler. It's a giant black rectangle, and there's nothing activating that space. There's no shapes interfering with it. There's nothing going on there. It's just very much just there. You know what I mean? I mean, you can give it some character after, but the composition comes first. Character's like how you design a thing. It's like, you know, the elements of the design that kind of inform you about what it is and who built it, culture, where it's been, how it feels, mood. That's all character. Composition is just placement on the canvas. It's placed in a very flat, weird way right now. I would honestly rate that character is made of light, so I would honestly like raise the character into the piece. You know what I mean? Actually bring the character into it. I said I wasn't gonna do this, but I'm gonna do it. Gonna do it, damn it. Just very quickly, I'm not gonna get carried away here. Real quick. In perspective, the front of this boat could curve and end right here. It could taper off into the distance back and then raise back up back here. Then you could drop the sky down as far as this, and it makes more of a diagonal thrust into the canvas. If this is supposed to be a sail, it could be catching a lot more light, and it could be ripped up. So at the bottom, you could have some, you know, wear and tear here, some rips in it, stuff like that. I'm gonna say that this is the mast pole right there. Get rid of this. Bring this down. So now you've got a bit more of a diagonal push into the canvas. I would bring this up so it's not going directly into the corner. And keep the dudes hanging from it though. Just makes it a sharper angle, and a sharper angle is more exciting. So, you know, bring the light down from the rock back here. Maybe give it like a spooky figurehead, like I'm gonna rough in a silhouette of a body here. Could be anything, you know what I mean? Curling down the front like that, catching a rim light because it's backlit, you know, coming down into the ship like that. Assuming you know what a figurehead is, so I won't go too crazy with drawing it. Little gap where the figurehead is attached back here. This body is too close to the edge, so I'm going to get rid of that. Drop this one to like here. Bring some lighting behind them to make them a little bit more of a focal point. Some rigging, you know, some spiderwebby rigging that's dead. You've got this fog down here, so I guess I'll light this up. Like, see what that does already? I'm not done yet, but already it just makes it more of a activated space. Bring this down here. Maybe there's some cannon doors in the side here that the flaps have been left open on, so that, you know, spooky light can shine through from the deck. But yeah, and then, like, you know, the last thing I would do, I mean, there's a ton of stuff you could do to this. I could crit this whole thing for a couple hours and move everything around and go nuts on it, but I gotta get back to the underwater painting I was doing. You know, show more of the mountain range back here, so it's not just one solid, you know, rock out in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, and then the last thing I would do is take this dude who's down here, and, like, you know, he's glowing and whatever, and he's way down at the bottom. He doesn't need to be. You know what I mean? Like, bring him up here. Put him on like a third and a third. Like, this is the intersection of those 2/3. There's 1/3 here, and there's 1/3 here. So I'm going to put the dude there. And then underneath, you've already introduced rocks and all this crazy mountainy stuff, so why not just have him out on like a precipice that comes up over the water, you know what I mean, and just have him on a raised space like that. And then you can have all the, you know, the glowy water back here, and then you could have some of the glowy fog push the other side of the precipice out like that. You could really obscure this. Catch some light here, catch some light around the bottom of this guy because he's glowing. You know, make them spooky and ethereal. And then I noticed you had a tree that was growing over here. If you want to bring the tree in, you can. I don't think it needs it, but if you wanted to, you could, lighten this up just a tiny bit because it's going away in perspective. And it's in the fog more because it's farther away. So the farther away things are in a foggy environment, the lighter they're going to get. So lighten that up too. And then if you wanted to, you could, just have that tree over here, branches pointing down at the dude, coming up like that, like that. Again, composition probably doesn't need the tree, but if you want the tree there to really sell the spooky mood, you can totally do it and get away with it. And then, of course, because this guy's, glowy, you want to light up part of the tree. Some branches, stuff like that. Some roots. Push this boat back a bit more. But anyway, I'm going to get back to the underwater painting, but this is nowhere near what I would do if I was critting the whole thing, but yeah, so just a suggestion on how to make this a bit spookier. Hopefully that stuff made sense and is something you can actually use. But yeah, so, real quick, just look at how much more activated the space is. So anyway, hopefully that makes sense. But yeah. Maybe I'll come back to that. Rainbows, I can't remember. Are you part of the art camp class that I'm doing these crits for? No? Okay. Well, I liked the piece, so I gave it a quick look at it anyway. But yeah. I was going to use, if you were part of the class, I was going to just crit that one next and put it up on the forum so you could look at the JPEG, but yeah, you get the idea. I mean, I didn't close it, so I'll tell you what. Here. I'm going to wait 15 seconds. Take a screenshot. Okay. You just got here. This underwater one is the piece I'm going to be critting tonight. I just quickly looked at a compositional thing that Rainbows was having a problem with. Dan, thinking about light and shadow, is there a rule of thumb to where to add more saturation or grays to a painting? Mine's essentially a blending between colors. There's different rules depending on different lighting scenarios. I mean, if you pick up, James, this is kind of a cop-out answer, but If you pick up James Gurney's Color and Light book, it kind of explains all of them. So the best advice I can give you is to get that book. It's pretty cheap. Um, but I mean, basically, the most saturated colors are where the light is falling. Usually in shadow, that's when things start to lose their color because the light's not on them. Typically, in a painting, things with light come forward and things with shadow recede, but that's not always the case because you can flip that and you can do cool things with it if you flip it. So usually the focal point is what's catching light, and usually shadows push things back. But if you flip that, this is one of my favorite paintings ever, by N.C. Wyeth. Him and Howard Pyle were masters of using this rule and bending it. So in this case, if you're doing like a silhouette-driven thing, all the colors in the background, really, it's very bright, it's very colorful, and then these dudes are kind of in silhouette. There's a shadow falling over them, and because the background is so bright, that shape of those three men instantly jumps forward, and that becomes the focal point. You know what I mean? So there's not a go-to rule that's definitively what you do for where to put the most color and where to put the most grays. It's kind of just up to the composition and the subject matter and you artistically based on the effect you want to get. So, again, keep in mind that color isn't the same thing as value, and they work in tandem. So everything on your canvas can be extremely colorful, and what becomes the focal point could be determined by value instead of color. How dark certain things are versus how light other things are. Color and value are always tied to one another. I'm looking at a very specific painting on my other monitor real quick for a quick idea of what I want to do to this. So give me a second. If you'd like a piece to maybe study to improve this one, there's a really beautiful painting by Jason Chan. This painting right here, Undersea Romance. I'm going to be looking at it for how I treat your dude's body and lighting in certain parts, not for all of it, but it's a really good painting. So, the shadow sides of this dude need to be a bit more defined before I get into the bottom. So, yes, there's a lot of bounce light underwater, but the shadow sides of this guy's body are still going to be pretty well defined as shadows. That transparent kind of membrane thing is cool. I'm going to keep as much of that as I can. Grab a little bit of white just to really push some of the topmost areas with some spooky desaturated underwater light. Trying to define the edges of this tail a bit more. Yeah, paintovers are fun. There's nothing more, how do I put it? I don't know, nothing more exciting, I guess, than taking a piece that you're absolutely at the end of your rope with and you don't know what to do, and then seeing somebody look at it with a different perspective that you never considered and going, oh. I love it when I get that feeling from other people. So, paintovers are my favorite thing to do as a result. Alright, now this guy's tail. That's one big thing with this piece you got to look at going forward, is The shadow sides of things need to be in shadow. They need to be significantly darker. The light sides of things need to be considerably lighter. Especially underwater, because, you know, I think it's, I'm trying to remember I'm a scuba diver, and they teach you this weird thing that I can't remember. It's like I want to say it's every 15 or 20 feet. It's like everything gets like halved or something like that. It's like every 20 feet everything gets halved unless the water's really clear, or maybe it's like a third gone. So like the colors get desaturated more and more and more and more as you go down, because there's less light that's making it down. Red's the first color to go. But yeah. Why red? I couldn't tell you. It has something to do with how strong the wave is for the color red versus the light making it through the medium of the water. Red just doesn't last for some reason. Red's it's like a lower frequency color, I think, so it doesn't make it down as deep. But the weird thing is that's because there's no light. If you go down super deep underwater and you find, you know, fish and stuff like that, or shellfish or plants, and you bring a flashlight, they might appear red when you shine light on them. But I'm talking about sunlight. Sunlight, the colors fade the deeper you get, and they go in a certain order. And I know red's the first color to go. Now your dude in the original painting had like this ribbed body. This feels more like a worm or something, or like an insect, or a grub, or like a centipede. It feels more like that than actually. I think this is digital. I think you just put a canvas effect over it. This might be a traditional painting though. Maybe it is a traditional painting actually, from the look of it. But either way, um, this kind of ribbed body here is very, very insect. Uh, there's two kinds of, you know, fish body textures really when you get underwater. One is like a shark where it's smooth and kind of velvety, and the other is scaled. And that's really it. So I'm going to treat this guy like scaled because that makes more sense with the kind of design you have going on the upper body. So I'm going to catch a little flecks of light down here along the band where the lighting is going to fall to show that there is in fact some plates, some scales down there. I think this might actually be a traditional piece, so apologies, it's going to be a little harder to apply the paint over, but you can do it. There's no such thing as a color layer in traditional media. You got to actually manually repaint all the colors. I miss working with traditional media. Used to be all I did. It's been like years since I've actually done a piece with traditional. I'm not still doing acrylics. That's all I did for years, but I haven't touched my acrylics in a long time. Is it just down to schedule? No, it's that the clients I have don't want acrylic paintings. They want digital paintings. Some clients don't care, but some clients do. They want digital files that they can manipulate, and they want turnaround times that are too fast for, if a client says they need something tomorrow, I don't have time to do that in acrylic. Acrylic is like, I have to draw the thing, transfer it, seal it, paint it, let it dry, put the second coat on, let it dry, scan it, clean it, send it. Like digital, I can just do it and send it. So, yeah, it's just a convenience thing. But yeah, a lot of the clients I have require digital. You can't do acrylic for it. What happened to Noah? What's the sad news? I didn't see. Please, by all means, explain in the chat. Oh. Yeah, that happens. That definitely happens, and it's a pain in the ass. Losing files is a total bitch. I remember back when me and Dave were doing the Crimson Conversations all the time. We did a really long interview with Bjorn Fury, and man, the first half of it was really good, and we lost it. It's just gone. Just gone. It's just the live stream decided it just, fuck us. Once in a while, you just lose a video. It can't be helped. You just gotta pick up the pieces and move on. Well, I mean, he's on the companion. He's abroad, working on his companion. It's not that, I have a funny feeling that you're more likely to lose video more often if you're rendering it off of a companion or a laptop. That statement might be completely false, but I feel like if you're rendering off of a portable device, you're more likely to lose your video files more often because the amount of processing power it takes to render a video, I don't know, I just feel like that's the case. Again, could be completely wrong, but it doesn't surprise me that Noah would lose more files on his portable than he would on his PC. Do we think we'll do more convos in the future? I don't know. I mean, if we want to, yeah. We kind of decided to step away from the Crimson Daggers thing after a while. It was just a choice we made to, like, let the group be the group, and we were getting tons of work at the time, so we were like, okay, well, we've done all this stuff and it's there and people can still go see it, and like the model is there if people want to use it, and we'll just back off because it was getting to be a little too much. Like we never wanted to be like like Jason Manley's or something like that where the group was defined by us and we were doing everything and blah blah blah. Like no, like that was never the point. That was never the idea. So we backed off, and if there's ever an artist that we know that we really want to do an interview with, we'll do it. But yeah, we just haven't like really wanted to for a long time. We never want to force anything because that's when shit becomes terrible. Like in all things creative, the second you have to start forcing it, the quality drops, the passion drops. It starts to become like a job. And then, the next step after that obviously is I don't want to do it, but people want me to do it, so I guess I'll charge for it. And then you end up with what, like, conceptart.org became in the end. And we don't want to do that. We'd rather just be like, well, it was really good for a while, and all that stuff's there, and anybody who wants to do it can do it the way we did it, and, the model's there for anyone that wants to follow it, and then just back off. I think that's a much healthier way to do it. So, yeah, that's the decision we made. Yeah, and then you've got all sorts of other stuff. I mean, you've got Level Up, and you've got One Fantastic Week, and you've got all these other things that are similar to the stuff we used to do. Not exactly the same, but that's good because you want different takes on how to do that stuff. And yeah, so Level Up especially was like basically just critters, and the old contests we used to do. So that was cool to see that kind of making a resurgence. I'm glad some people took initiative to do that. But yeah, so there's still stuff out there. It's just not, we just don't. We're not in a place right now where we are comfortable doing stuff. So we're not gonna force it. As guests, I mean, they're in charge of inviting guests. You're more likely to see Dave than me, probably. But yeah, I don't know. It's up to the people that run those things. I mean, if anyone wants to talk with me, I'm always down to talk about whatever. But yeah, I don't know. That's up to those streams. I know we've both been kind of talking to less people lately, just because we've been totally slammed with like the amount of work we've been doing. But yeah, kind of fell out of the community for a bit out of necessity. Sorry, just cleaning up edges here. Trying to make this a bit more defined against the canvas. Not entirely sure if this dude's supposed to be like a jellyfish man or like a cephalopod man or what. So I'm going to stick to the design that you gave him and just add little flourishes in a couple places. I'm not going to fundamentally change anything too much just because I'm not totally sure what the animal reference is. It might be something I'm not recognizing. I feel like he's supposed to be like a jellyfish man or a cephalopod man. Maybe a mix of the two. I like how I did a bunch of work for Transformers 4 and I still can't show it in my portfolio, and the movie's already like been out forever. Makes me so mad. Hopefully you guys don't have to encounter that stuff when you start getting those kinds of jobs. Just like not being able to show the work you've done. Everybody assumes you just stopped painting. It's like the worst feeling. Everyone's like, oh, I think he just stopped. And it's like, no. No, I did work. I just can't show you. It's just so annoying to be like, well, guess I just gotta keep my mouth shut and wait forever. The only thing I can do, I think, legally is if there's an image online of one of them, I can, like, share it and be like, I worked on this. But I can't, like, put the files in my portfolio. I'm starting to realize why I've been spending so much time on the edges. It's because this is a traditional painting and I'm zooming into a level of detail that traditional painting is not meant to convey. So I should probably zoom out and work at a zoomed out view because this is getting ridiculous. The only thing I would say in terms of this dude's design, even though I'm not going to touch the animal elements, just, he's obviously got a human male influence in the upper torso, so little things like, making sure the neck muscles are accurate to how his head's twisting and, like, maybe hinting at, like, an Adam's apple or something. Just, stuff to sell the human parts as more human. Just so it feels a little more natural to see this body in this pose. No, it's because of legal stuff. It's not because they think it could affect sales. It's basically... Okay, so here's basically the politic of sharing work you've done in a studio, broad strokes, for anybody who's interested and wants to work in a studio. If you work on a team, this isn't all teams, this is just some teams, because every company is different. Every company has different standards and practices. Some companies where you work on a team, they don't want you to say that you painted something even if you painted all of it. They want you to say that the team painted it because the project was technically a team project. So that creates a legal bugaboo where if you put it in your portfolio, and for example, if it was me, Dan Warren, and it was my portfolio, and it said, Dan Warren's portfolio, and there was a bunch of stuff in it that I did for, Transformers, people would assume that I did all that stuff on my own for Transformers as, Dan Warren's sole entity. And that isn't necessarily the case with every piece. Some of them I did all of, some of them I did part of, some of them I did very little of. So they'd rather not have you put them in your portfolio at all. That's the thing, is like that's where the problem starts to come in, is because they don't want people to assume that you're taking credit for something that other people might have had a hand in. So even though, let's say for example, I painted a Grimlock entirely myself. I did the whole Grimlock. That's the thing. I did all of it. So I did this Grimlock, but technically I had an art director who looked at the Grimlock I was painting and said, "Oh yeah, that's good. Do that." Because their approval was part of the process of that Grimlock, technically it's a collaboration with that art director at the company. So technically the company painted it, not me as Dan Warren's sole proprietor. So it's like, it's really, for some companies, it's really complicated to figure out how to say who did what. It's really weird. But yeah, so I know I can put these in my portfolio, but I have to wait until basically the company I worked for, the people I worked with, Hasbro, and the movie studio all agree on how to phrase the project, I guess. I need to get their approval on like what I have to say, the proper watermarks to put on everything. Like, it's kind of like they're kind of divvying up the turkey basically and figuring out who gets what piece. And I gotta wait for that to be done before I can actually put it in my portfolio. So like there's 4 or 5 that I basically did all of. But I don't know if I'm going to be able to actually say that. But yeah, it's really, really complicated. So it's like, it can be anything as small as like, I'm working on an Optimus Prime, and we decide that the pose doesn't work. So someone else on the team draws a new pose, and we all go, "Oh yeah, no, that's cool." So then I take their sketch, and then I turn it into a final. They came up with the sketch, so it's a team effort. I get that. I understand it's a team effort. I'm not saying that that's wrong. What I'm saying is, it's incredibly annoying to have to wait to put all that stuff in your portfolio and not even know if you can like put your name on it. It's just really weird. Oh yeah, well with Kekai and Jamie Jones, they collaborated on like everything. Them and Daniel Doshu commented, collaborated on like they basically art directed Guild Wars 2. They did like all this shit together. So if you see a piece that's credited to 2 or more artists, I mean that's not uncommon. It's a pipeline, and if something goes wrong and work has to get pushed around, different people are going to work on different things, and that's how a team works. So it's not uncommon. It's very common. I mean, it's easier when everybody there is like really close friends. Like obviously, Jamie, Kekai and Daniel Doshu know each other really well, so that helps. You know what I mean? That makes it easier. I don't know if I'm legally able to say that I completed any of those pieces to answer your questions, Yagabe. I think what I legally have to say, I'm trying to remember. I think what I legally have to say is these are pieces I worked on while at the team at X company or something like that. Or like, these are pieces I did for blah, blah, blah with this company. It's a weird sentence, but yeah. Or like stuff I worked on while at this company. But I don't think I can say I painted this for this company. I don't think I can do that. It's really weird. But if anyone wants to work in a studio, I'm just talking about this so you have an idea of what you might be getting into. What did I think about Craig Mullins using an old painting for one of his works and then slapping it in his portfolio? Nearly 1/3 of the piece was painted over from the painting. That painting was out of copyright, and it was pre-production concept art on a tight deadline for a project. He probably only had a couple days to do it, and the painting's out of copyright, so there's no problem. I don't see what the problem is. I don't know why everybody got so mad. I still don't understand why everybody got mad. It's like a painting from what, like the 1800s or something? I can't remember. I can't remember what artist it was he used, but yeah, if the painting doesn't have a copyright on it, he didn't do anything wrong. Like the thing about Craig Mullins that everybody kind of forgets. People obsess about Craig Mullins because he's able to convey so much stuff so quickly in such a small amount of time. He's not really a painter as much as he is like a sketch guy. Like he does concept sketches, but he's so fast and he's so good and he knows the medium so well that they look like totally finished paintings, but that's not really what they are. That's not the purpose they serve in the pipeline on the projects he's a part of. He's very much just like, we need a sketch of this to establish this, and that's what he does. Um, but yeah, I mean, so if you're trying to flesh out what a world is going to look like, and you need to have like 5 sketches done in like a day that need to be of like finished level quality, you're going to be ripping from photos. You're going to be doing all that stuff. I mean, that's what happens. The thing I don't understand about these, I mean, I'm not gonna mince words. I think they're idiots. I mean, the thing I don't understand about these idiots that get mad about Craig Mullins using a old painting that's out of copyright and pulling pieces of it into a finish is that those same people have no problem with other artists that go on Google image search, find photographs of landscape vistas that are probably copyrighted from a photographer, and then use those to do matte paintings of fantasy environments. It, how do you approve of one and hate the other? At least with Craig Mullins, it's an artist who's out of copyright. You know what I mean? It's not like that. Oh, that's very clearly a photo of a rock face from this country that I've been to. I recognize it. Like, how can you hate one and defend the other one? It's the same fucking thing. It's pulling something you didn't do off the internet and using it to speed up your deadline. It's the same thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you either approve of it or you don't approve of it. But yeah, no, I didn't care at all. I don't give a shit. I think, I mean, I might be wrong about this, but my opinion is that the majority of the people that got mad about Craig Mullins doing that were actually mad because they want to believe in magic and they think Craig Mullins is like a wizard. And then they saw the strings at the magic show and they went, "Hey, I fell for that. I feel like an asshole now." Like all these people that are just like, "Oh, Craig Mullins, he's the greatest artist of a generation. Everything he does is amazing." he can fly and he can saw girls in half, and I don't even understand how he does these things. And then all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, if he used a painting for this, he probably used paintings and photos for lots of other stuff. I've been tricked. And then they all feel like idiots because they want to believe in this dude that they've invested so much in. And it's like, it's not that important. Like, it's fine. Like, you can like his stuff. You know, it's like you like an image or you don't like an image. Like, the methodology of how it was created is a secondary thing. Yeah, it's like he's like, okay, so here's the test for idiots. If you're mad about what Craig Mullins did with an old master painting, here's the test for anyone who's mad about that might be listening. Go to Google image search or go to the ARC website and find an old master painting and turn it into an illustration that's anywhere near as good as Craig Mullins' stuff. If you can do it as well as he can do it, then sure, get mad. He's a hack. He's so cheap, anybody can do it. If you find out that the amount of skill he has that's necessary to take work like that and turn it into something else is astronomically high, then shut your damn mouth. You know what I mean? Like, just shut up. Tons of artists just use photos from stock websites and paint over them, and you can go identify them, and nobody gives a fuck. So the only reason people are mad about Craig Mullins is because they wanted to think that, you know, they wanted to think that he was the Wizard of Oz, basically. And once they got a little tiny glimpse of the man behind the curtain, they felt like idiots and they got mad. And now he has to fly away in his balloon because nobody believes him anymore. I just don't like the inconsistent anger. That's the only thing I don't like. Like, I don't care. I just don't like the inconsistent anger. I don't like that you can defend people that photo bash to do an illustration and then get mad at Craig Mullins for using an old painting. It's the same fucking thing. Like, I don't understand these people that are like, oh my god, he betrayed us. Like, no he didn't, you idiot. Like, go hop on Not Just an Armor Nor Just a Night Tumblr for the 80 millionth time like everybody else. Rip a piece of armor or a girl holding a spear into your fucking illustration and then, you know, really look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself if you have the right to tear down Craig Mullins for using an old master painting as part of his illustration. Like, what? What are you? I don't use any photos in any of my work. I'll use references and look at how stuff works and paint from it, but I don't pull photos in my work. But that's just me. I know tons of people who do, and that's fine if that's what you're going to do. If that's your style and that's what you're comfortable doing and you're happy with the results, cool. It's not for me, but that's the nice thing about art is that there's so many different ways to do it. Not everybody has to work the same way. Photo bashing isn't something I'm a big fan of, but that doesn't mean it's worthless. Doesn't mean there's no place for it. I mean, you kind of have to use photos for reference. That's not really a, you know, unfortunately. If a client hires me to paint an image of a girl riding a giraffe, I can't make up a giraffe off the top of my head and have it work as an illustration I can charge money for. I'm going to have to go to Google and figure out how giraffes work. You know what I mean? Like, you just gotta. I mean, it's just part of it. Illustrators have been doing that for over 100 years, though. Not with Google, but Winsor McCay made Little Nemo. There's all kinds of animals in it, and that was back in 1906. And if he needed to know how to draw a lion, he'd go to the zoo, or he'd buy a book of etchings of animals, or photographs if he could find one, and he'd copy from that. But I mean, there's some things you just don't know how to draw. I mean, you don't encounter a giraffe in your everyday life. You're not going to know how to do one off the top of your head. Photo bashing is mainly for people to be able to meet deadlines and work faster? No. No, actually. That's not the only reason. Photo bashing, there's basically two main reasons. The first one is, well, there's actually three. The first one is, yes, they want to speed things up for their deadlines, so they start with photos and they paint elements in to make it look more finished and faster. The second reason for photo bashing is that concept art for film and game has become so high standard now because of the textures people are able to make in video games and the quality of the films that are being shot and stuff like that, that they actually want photo bashing in the concept art because they want it to look as close to finish as possible. And when you start, like, for example, if part of a movie is going to take place in the Grand Canyon, it's much easier to just go get photos of the Grand Canyon and start from there, because the deadlines for these massive movies is so tight, the crunch time is so tight, that they're going to ask you to work from photos because it creates a more photorealistic idea of what the movie's going to look like faster than if you were to paint it. So that's number two. And number three is stylistic choice. Some people just love the way photo textures look when they paint it over. Some people just love the way that looks. They love it. That's their favorite thing artistically, so they'll do it. I'm not one of them, but they do exist. But yeah, it's not just a time-saving, oh, I had to photo bash. It's, some jobs literally have you photo bash. I had to photo bash for Transformers, and I never photo bash, but I had to for that. Absolutely had to for that. There's no way I could have painted that stuff in a week from scratch. I had to do one Transformer a week, every week. There's absolutely no way I could have made stuff look that photoreal without pulling stuff from junkyards, without looking at principal photography from the movie. It's like there's all kinds of shit you have to do to make that work that fast. You're not at a disadvantage for not liking to do that. It might mean that you're not able to get certain kinds of jobs. If you want to be an in-house concept artist at Miramax, you might need to know how to photo bash. They might expect you to know how. If you want to work for Michael Bay, you don't necessarily have to know how to photo bash, but it might help. Wes Burt was like senior concept artist on Transformers, and he doesn't photo bash. He was just doing designs for the robots. So, you can get that job just knowing how to draw and design, but the people that had to take Wes's concepts into phase 2 of the development cycle and turn them into, this is what it's going to look like when you pay someone to 3D render it with realistic textures, they had to photo bash. They had to use 3D, So yeah, there's jobs for everybody. It's not like you have to know how to do certain stuff to get every job. You don't. I don't know how to sculpt. It's like I don't know how to use ZBrush. That just means that I'm not going to get a ZBrush job. Tons of other jobs in the art world besides ZBrush. I'm going to be fine. But yeah. I mean, it's admirable, Dorothy. You're saying you're influenced by the stalkers community on DA. We're using photos from Google and even references frowned upon. It's okay to frown upon it, but at the end of the day, I mean, this is my job. If I have a client that says he wants a realistic lion, I have to find a realistic lion and I have to make that deadline. I've got bills to pay. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I can be principled too, but at the end of the day, it's a career. You know what I mean? You got to be realistic about a client's needs and your duties as an artist. And if I don't know what, a flying buttress looks like for the background of my cathedral painting for a client that's going to pay my rent, you can be damn sure I'm going to go to Google and type in flying buttress. I mean, that's just what's going to happen. No problem, Zia Gabe. I'm happy to answer questions. See, Dorothy? Perfect example. You said a flying what? Now let's assume a client asks you to paint a flying buttress. You've never heard of what a flying buttress is. By default, you have to find out or you can't do this job. So are you going to give in to your principles and just make up whatever you think a flying buttress is? Are you going to go to the internet and actually find out what one is and see a picture of one and have the dreaded reference in your life? You know what I mean? What if a client asks you to draw something you've never heard of before? That's probably the best example. But if you get asked to draw something you've never heard of, you kind of have to go get reference. It's not really a choice anymore. Just looking at my before and after real quick before I move on. Cool. Jonathan Rector said that when he switched from traditional drawing to doing comics digitally, he got a surprising amount of hate mail and comments. Yeah, I don't know who Jonathan Rector is by name. I might know his work or what he worked on. But you got to understand that people in this community, this is, how do I explain this without sounding like the worst human? Okay, so I'm going to set up a scenario. Try to follow me here. So, to get to a level where you're in this community doing jobs and working and actually making money requires such an insane amount of work and dedication on behalf of your personal development as an artist that basically the only people that are going to get there are the people that sacrifice tons of stuff in their social life. That's just kind of a given. That's just kind of a given. When you think about it logically, that's just what it takes. So the human brain needs to care about things because that's, we're human beings. It just happens. So when you get rid of your social life and you get rid of those things that most people care about because you're working on your work starts to fill in the gap and things related to your work starts to fill in the gap. So because you don't necessarily have friends you're going out with all the time or distractions that you're filling your days with, you start to care about art more and more and more and more because that hole in your life of things you used to do is getting wider the less you're doing. So you're filling it with what you're now doing, which is art, and looking at art and talking to artists and art and improvement and art. And that sets up this weird scenario where if anyone goes against your principles, you get these knee-jerk lightning flash reactions that all kinds of people get on all the forums where, you know, you're a hack, you're a liar, you're a thief, you're an asshole, you're a bigot. You know, it's just like these crazy words that you should never apply to someone who's working as an artist, but people care so much about what's going on in this community and what the artists are doing because they have nothing else to fill their days with because they're, you know, drawing anatomy for the 500th time or trying to pay their bills doing DeviantArt commissions. And, you know, that investment in the community turns into this weird necessity. Like, you care about it way too much. So, you know, when an artist you really admire does something that you deem wrong, or that these people deem wrong or inappropriate, or I would never do that, or how could they? I'm working so hard and I'm not taking that shortcut. Who do they think they are? That these people, like the guy you just mentioned, of course they're going to get hate mail because these people are idiots. They're idiots who've sacrificed all this crazy stuff to do this, who've, as a result, have lost like that little bit of humanity that would, you know, normally tell you, maybe I shouldn't rush to judgment of this person. You know what I mean? Like, that's not there anymore. But yeah, I mean, that happens all the time. It's not just him. It's just like so many people. I mean, that's the thing. It's the same thing with Craig Mullins. We were just talking about, you know, 10 minutes ago. These people have nothing else to care about, so they start getting mad about stuff that doesn't matter, like, at all. Stuff doesn't matter. That's the crazy thing, is it doesn't matter. None of it matters. But no, like, you're saying, like, you're surprised you got hate mail. I'm not surprised at all. The second any artist does anything different, they get hate mail. When Dave started doing his comic book style for Starvale and he wasn't rendering stuff like he used to, that photoreal style, he got hate mail. And he got comments saying he was shit now and blah, blah, blah. Like, the second anyone does anything differently than what people expect or want, it doesn't matter if it's good. All they see is that it's different and they hate it. Like 9 times out of 10. It's shitty. It's terrible. Everyone in this community, like, that's the thing you got to keep in mind whenever you read those comments and stuff like that. Everyone in this community who's trying to make a living or get a foothold or, you know, be part of it is working so hard to maintain that and achieve that, you know, they're blind to what they're saying, basically. Like, if you get something that they don't have easier than they think you should have gotten it, or if you get something they think they deserve and you don't, based on, because, you know, all people have is their own experiences. We're all sitting at home alone working. We don't have a perspective on what everyone else in the community is doing. All you know when you're sitting at home working 15 hours a day every day is that you're working 15 hours a day every day. You don't sit down and think to yourself, oh, that must be what everybody else is doing too because this is really hard. All you have is your own experience, and you go, I'm working so hard. And then, you know, by default, a lot of people think that everybody else isn't working as hard as them, which automatically means that they don't deserve the things they're getting as much as I would deserve getting it because I'm working so much harder because the only experience I can see is my own. And then that turns into this weird entitlement cloud where these people get super mad about everything everyone does because they would have done it differently or they deserve it more. It's absolutely stupid. It's so crazy. And it's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So, I mean, the only thing you can do if that stuff bothers you is just tune out the community completely. Like, no one cares. Like, there's this weird phenomenon happening now that's like the craziest thing ever. I think me and Dave talked about it on a stream not too long ago. I can't remember. But artists are doing art for other artists now. And that is nuts. Like, yes, being judged by your peers should be a thing. Yes, getting feedback from other people doing similar stuff should be a thing. But there are artists who think they're successful because tons of other artists like their work. That's not your market. That's not your measure of success if you're an illustrator or a concept artist. The real world is out there. The audience is out there. It's not on DeviantArt. It's not here. It's not on, Facebook art groups that love your stuff. It's real people out in the world. That's the audience. You know what I mean? Like, if your whole thing is just that tons of artists like you, and you've never, like, stepped out into the real world and seen what real people think about your stuff, you're probably not as successful as you think you are. Like, it's a crazy thing that just keeps happening. It's, I used a technique that this artist used to do this thing better than that guy did, so all these likes happen on these art groups, and they assume that they're big. I'm a big deal now, and it's like, no. Like, nope. That's not the case at all. There's artists that don't talk to anyone online that are insanely successful because they go directly to the groups that matter. They go to, like, Tumblr communities. They go to real world communities. They, publish books and get them out into actual people's hands that aren't the art community. Like, more people need to do that. But yeah, I don't know. Let's see. I missed some questions here. If you're the new artist on Spider-Man, you drum slightly different than the last artist, you'll get death threats. Yeah, that's true. It's 100% true. People with nothing else to care about really, really, really put too much into their Spider-Man. Spider-Man being just, could be anything. Got a question. Dave said you guys got an offer from Marvel to draw and write a story for them, I think for X-Men. Can you talk about that? Because that's totally amazing. Where did Dave say that? Because I'm definitely not going to talk about that unless I know for sure you're not making it up. But yeah, if there's anything else anyone wants to talk about, feel free. Sorry I went on that little mini tangent there. I hate that stuff so much. Like those little artist gangs. Like, man, I hate this dude. You should hate him too. And then all these other artists chime in that and go, yeah, I can't believe he did that. And it's like, I don't know. It's like West Side Story. It's like a bunch of lame artists on the internet walking down an alley with switchblades, snapping their fingers, wearing leather jackets, hating Craig Mullins. And it's like, who the fuck cares? Nobody cares. Like, my God, nobody cares. While you're doing that with your art friends and getting mad about it, there's people actually, like, writing books and creating things and putting their art out there into the hands of real human beings that are going to love and appreciate it. Like, why? Why are you wasting your time? It matters because the art community has my back. Oh, the art community? The 0.0000005% of the human population that makes a living drawing. It's like, come on. Basically, my point is people get way too mad about nothing for no reason. So if you see yourself doing it, just stop. That's what I did. If I see anything that makes me mad on Facebook or anything like that now, I just stop and I go, wait a minute. Is this funny? And then if it's funny, I'll make a joke about it. And if it's not funny, I'll just ignore it. There's no reason. You don't have to get mad about stuff. Oh, I love that. When we did our Crimson Daggers Zelda Wind Waker reimagining challenge, and we got like hundreds of thousands of hits, millions of hits on the internet, on Kotaku and other websites, and then all the fans were like, Wind Waker was perfect. Nothing can be different, ever. Nothing should ever be different. Nothing should ever be different. Take your imagination and shut it down. I'm right. No one else can be right. Only me. Happens to everybody. Happens to absolutely everybody who's willing to take a risk on something creative. Which is why a lot of people don't take risks creatively. Which is kind of sad when you think about it. Oh, I had this great idea, but the backlash, I just don't want to deal with it. Like, that should never factor in. That should never be a thing. Yeah, I'm sure James did. So for people who don't know, my buddy James Zapata, he did some Naruto fan art, and he like imagined them as like these more realistic kind of future inspired sci-fi, almost Metal Gear like warrior characters. And it was like a really like it was like a take on it that had never been done before, and it was like his little experiment. Because keep in mind, I don't know anything about Naruto. I think it's kids that do like karate or some shit. Like, that's all I know. I think one of them turns into a fox. That's about the limit of my knowledge. But yeah, so he did that, and everybody got mad. Like, everybody got mad. Like, not everybody. Like, people, a lot of people understood that it was just him exploring something artistically, and they're like, oh, cool, nice. But all these Naruto fans got mad because they love Naruto, and they have nothing else to care about, so Naruto can only be Naruto. Forever. No matter what. How dare you have an imagination? Never. Like, so stupid. Hey, cool, you got the Gnomes book. That's awesome. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. But basically, I mean, just as a rule, the second you have any kind of audience online at all, even if it's just like a couple hundred people following your work, the second you take any kind of, I mean, the easiest way to phrase it is the second you have any kind of opinion on anything, half the audience is going to disagree with you, always. And by opinion, I mean, like, that covers everything. I'm talking about fan art. I'm talking about, how you think the industry should work. I'm talking about anything you think. Tons of people are going to disagree. And people that are following you because you've made it to some degree in your art career, they're going to 100% disagree with you because they want to think that you're wrong and that they're right. They want to think that they deserve what you have more than you do, so everything you say is going to be wrong forever. It's just another excuse for them to go, can you believe this dick? Oh my god. It's like, so just stop caring. It doesn't matter. None of that shit matters. There's tons of stuff I disagree with on the internet, but I'm not going to say anything because who cares? It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. It's all time you could be spending creating the stuff you actually want to see and putting it out there for other people that want to see it. Oh, thanks, Mike. If you're talking to me, I think you are. I did put up some goblins last week. I've got more goblins I should put up, actually. I haven't put them up yet. I think I've got, where are those goblins? I got a fish man right here. I don't think that's one of them. I got an owl man. I got a pug man. I got a rat man. I got a little chubby goblin. I got a tall goblin. A lot of these are directly influenced by Brian Brown. Because I love him so much. I'm trying to draw something every day. Trying. Am I going to paint him? No. I have too many other paintings I'm doing. If I do paint him, it'll be way later. So probably not. I've got, let's see. I'm building a, I can't talk about what it is because I can't legally because of my NDA, but I work for a tabletop game company designing figures for, like, you know, Warhammer style figurine battles and stuff like that. It's not like Warhammer though, it's medieval. But yeah, so I'm building an army for them right now, which I've never done before. I have to do the whole army myself, so I'm like my own art director basically. So it's a 20 unit army, so doing full color illustrations of 20 units is taking a lot of time. A lot of time. So I'm not really, and then I've got personal work on top of that I've been doing. So yeah, I don't really have a ton of time to just paint for fun right now. I guess my personal work is me painting for fun, but yeah, pretty busy. Yeah, it's kind of cool. I'm just building my own army, which will be interesting. It'll be interesting to own them once they get sculpted. Have little statues of stuff I made. It'll be a good feeling. But yeah, it's taking a lot of time. It's kind of simultaneously the best email you've ever gotten and the worst email you've ever gotten. When a client's like, hey, do you want to do 20 completely from the ground up things for us today, starting right now? And you're like, oh god, yes, but how am I going to make the time? Yeah, and the art camp critiques. I've got a lot of stuff going on right now. I've got a bunch of personal work. I've got the tabletop army. I've got the art camp critiques. I've got some freelance art direction I've been doing. Yeah, I got a lot of stuff. I've got 2 interns I have to manage because some people in the Boston area need to work with people that are working as artists to get college credit, so I'm working with them too. So I'm pretty busy. But busy's good. I mean, it's better than the alternative. I can remember back before I was doing art seriously, just wasting whole days, just driving around, eating something, coming home, playing a game, calling a friend, driving around again, eating something, playing a game again. Like, this is way better than that. Alright, so one thing that's bothering me that I'm going to get out of the way is some reflected light on this side because scales are shiny. Hey Brent, what's up, man? Been a while. What's going on? Whole lot of nothing. I hear you, man. I'm just doing some paintovers. Working on a fish man. Grab a color layer here. Drop my opacity down and just start washing some blue into this so it's receding a bit more. He could be related to Gasp Fishman. That's a good question. Gasp Fishman was like one of the very first paintovers. It was a good time. So I'm just using a color layer here to make the body recede down a bit more because that green is making it ascend in terms of where the light's falling. So if I turn it on and off real quick, it's really subtle. It's really, I mean, it might be more subtle for me because I'm red-green colorblind, but I mean, if you can see what I mean, like down here, a little bit too much of that green, especially in the stem and in the body. In the abs, it's just too warm. The green's just way too warm. So pushing it back like this a little bit just to make it look like that's in shadow and it's deeper in the water is going to help. Same thing with the undersides of the arms. Oh, okay. So now I think we're at the point where I'm going to start adding some fish, and then I think we're going to be pretty close to done. Because it does need some fish. So I'm going to flatten what we have so far, I think. Put Gasp Fishman in it. Okay, maybe. Perhaps. Oh, whoops. I grabbed a silly brush. I don't think I'm going to put Gasp in it. Just because I want to give this person a file they can really use to improve their piece. I do like the idea of a school of Gasp Fishmen, though. Okay. So, real quick, this is my before and after so far. Pretty big difference. Just adding the blue and pushing the edges, the highlights. Does a lot. This reminds me a lot of a piece of card art I did a long time ago that I never released online because I wasn't happy with it. And I'm going to pull it up specifically for this stream because they made me design a city for this card, an underwater city, that they gave me reference for, and they said please don't change anything based on the reference. And it was a city that just looked like it was made of dildos, basically. Like 100%. So, ooh, here you go. Look at that city full of dildos covered in Fabergé eggs. This is stupid giant fish turtle city. God, this was like 2 years ago. Yeah. Yes. Get in here. Look at some fish. Look at that little fish. Look at that. Little fish. Little fish. Good stuff. I know, that's what reminded me of that painting is, I gotta pull it up again. You were saying to do a giant gasp fishman in the background, and I was like, oh, I could just turn this turtle into gasp fishman. It could just be a giant gasp fishman face back here, coming to destroy this city. Coming to wreak havoc on the humans. I'm not talking about the next issue of Steve Lichtman. All I'm going to say about Steve Lichtman is that we already have like 8 more issues ready to go. So sorry, no gasp. Okay. And time for some fish. Let's see. I'm going to try something here. It might not work, but I'm going to try it. think it'll work. I'm trying to do like a boomerang where the fish come in from the bottom diagonal and go behind them and then loop around in front of them like that. Well, not in front of them, but around behind them to kind of pull the eye through and around. So again, this is a paintover, so this is where I cover my ass by basically saying I could go in and detail out all these fish, but I'm not going to. This is my get out of jail free card for not going in and painting every single fish. Just trying to come up with solutions for how best to place them. And I kind of like the swoop. It lets you put light fish against the dark part of the background and dark fish against the light part of the background, so there's like a little bit of counter change going on in the school of fish as they move up. One thing I didn't do, which if you're watching this, person who painted it, that you probably should do, is add some longer leaves to the stalks in the background. I just kind of quickly implied them in to get the forest feel, but the one in the foreground is leafy enough that you want to make it very clear that these are the same, species back here. So I'll quickly rough in some leaves on this one. Just because. Over here too. So we're going to be getting off of here soon. Does anyone in the chat have any last things they'd like to talk about, discuss, anything at all? Before we call it a wrap for today. I'll be on tomorrow doing some... I'm hoping to do my long one tomorrow. I'm not entirely sure if I can. Depends again on if I wake up to a client email saying I got to do something crazy tomorrow. But yeah. I'm hoping to do a long design crit tomorrow that's probably going to go closer to 5 hours. So yeah, I'm hoping to. If not, I'll do it this weekend. Can you name some other entry-level RPG companies similar to Paizo? There's a few. I think, why am I drawing a blank on this? Like War Machine is one of them. Munga, I think, is still in business. I haven't worked for Munga in a very long time. That's a card art company. You can try and get in touch with them if you want. I think White Wolf is still in business from what I heard. I heard they went under and then I heard they got bought. I can't exactly recommend working for White Wolf, but they are there if you're, I don't know, desperate, I guess. I've just heard so many horror stories from them. But yeah. Let's see. So, I'm going to do something here. So, this is the site for Munga that my art director's email comes from. There's a contact thing. Try that if you want to work for them. Dream Reactor, I don't know how you can get in touch with them other than to get in touch with I'm gonna mispronounce the shit out of this. I'm so sorry. He's a friend of mine. Uh, well, if anyone knows Artevinka, Alexander Natchitikov, I mispronounced the shit out of that. I'm so sorry. Find Artevinka, and he was their art director. I think he still is. I'm not entirely sure. But that's literally, I'd tell you how to get in touch with them, but that's literally the only way I know how to get in touch with them, is through him. So find him on Facebook or Twitter or something and get in touch with him. Let me actually use my brain like a human. Because, you know, I'm a human being and I should be able to do that. And copy his name off of Facebook so I don't have to butcher it like a complete asshole. And paste it there for you. It's a little bit better. But yeah. I think it's Nanichkov, Alexander Nanichkov. I'm bad at language. I apologize. Anyways, I could render these fish forever. I'm going to not do that though, and get off of here. But this was a really fun paintover. I really like underwater scenes, and this is kind of a cool creature. I like where it's headed. Yeah, I'd be very interested to see what you do with this if you take it to finish or use any of these crits. So feel free to repost it later in the crit forum when it's done. I would be very appreciative. And I think the last thing I'm going to do on here is just a real quick overlay layer to... I'm going to zoom out real quick and look at it as a whole. And just grab an overlay layer set to white and black to push some things forward and other things back. So I'm going to grab this, drop my opacity down to about 50. So the top of this can be darker. Darker here. Back here. In here. neck here, under the frill, the tail. Okay. Darken up some of the kelp here. Darken up some of the water on the edge of the highlights just to pop them out a bit more. Let me grab some white. Edge of the spear. Accents on the fish to show some scales. Yeah. Top of the head. I think that's it. I think. Maybe a little more shadow in here. But, yeah, no, I think that's about it for my, my crit, so let me, as usual, duplicate the background layer and flatten it down so we can do a before and an after, and then I'll get off of here. I just want to push this back a little bit. Just a little too dark. More of that canvas artifacting getting in the way. But yeah, okay, so here's the before and the after. Before, after. Zoom in, look at some stuff. Before, after. All right, time to go. Have a good night, everybody. I'll be on here tomorrow for more crits. If you've got stuff you'd like me to take a look at or stuff you want to talk about, just drop it in the critique paintover forum paintover thread on the artcamp forum. And yeah, have a good night. Good luck with whatever you're working on. Bye.